Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Marketing for Doctors podcast. I'm Bob Miglani, your host. On this show, we're going to talk to marketers, salespeople, digital creators, influencers, all to help you, yes, you, the doctor, to grow your medical practice. We're going to talk marketing specifically. We're going to talk sales strategies. We're going to talk analytics. We're going to talk digital. We're going to talk social. We're going to have great guests on this program so that you get a chance to understand, learn, and apply these principles and these ideas and these strategies to help you grow your practice. So let's get started. Hello, everyone. This is Bob Miglani. Welcome to the Marketing for Doctors podcast. I'm super thrilled that she said yes. No, I didn't propose. It's Dr. Ann Hoscheit who said yes to join the Marketing for Doctors podcast. Ann, how are you? Hello.
Hello, Bob, and I'm just tickled to join your podcast today. It did take a little bit of arm twisting, but I've so enjoyed our conversations. I'm treating this as just an extension of our last conversation, getting to know each other and sharing things that we are both passionate about.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for joining us. So, Ann has is a wonderful experience, deep, rich experience being a doctor and being an advisor, leadership advisor to so many doctors and practices across the country, and marketing. This is what we want to talk about today. So, first of all, thank you, Ann. For those of you who are watching this on YouTube, Ann is wearing a white coat. Okay. And I'm going to do a hashtag love the white coat because I'm a strong believer that doctors need to be doctors and be shown as such, not providers. Doctors work hard to get into medical school. So thank you, Ann, for wearing the white coat. I appreciate that.
Perhaps I'm just old school, but from a practical point of view, a lot of times what women wear, that we don't have pockets, and I love my pockets. But again, I just a little bit, and also being a female in the profession, when it was male dominated, often just having your name and your degrees or initials, doctorate on your lab coat helps separate you from female staff. So there were a lot of compelling reasons, but I think it just boils down to I like the professionalism, and I do happen to know that you're a fan favorite for the white coat, so I did this for you
Yes.
too.
Well, I think so. I want to hear about your journey. And so tell us about your journey. Tell us about how you got here.
Sure. Try to do it as briefly as possible. After completing residency, I had a brief stint at Nova Southeastern College of Optometry teaching ocular disease, and then moved to North Carolina and started my first private practice, which was an optometry ophthalmology vertically integrated practice.
Mhm.
Really fun. Built it to be quite successful, but there was something else I wanted to do, and that was really about promoting private practice for women. So I started another practice that was all exclusively female eye physicians, and that was a load of fun.
Wow.
Along the way, I managed my ADD by keeping my fingers in a lot of different pots.
Yes.
I had a column and review of optometry. I lectured KOL, clinical research,
Mhm.
pretty much if there was anything to keep my brain occupied. And having that exposure in the context industry was huge.
Mhm.
I think my approach to practice and patient care was certainly more interesting and probably had a greater depth than I would have ever imagined without that. And in 2014, I was approached by one of the private equity aggregators to sell my practice. And we had grown to a size that was going to be a little difficult for
Mhm.
private practice to ownership to transition. So I elected that option with the goal of my third startup, iBridge Consulting, which I had been doing some bits and pieces of here, starting actually in marketing consulting, marketing and messaging, and then growing it into an area of dry eye specialty service lines and aesthetics. So right now, that's what I do. I run iBridge Consulting full time, or mostly full time. It's
Yes.
my pre-retirement thing, perhaps.
Yes. Hey, there's no pre-retirement. There is no retirement. With people of your character, your integrity, your experience, right? And you have so much to offer the world. And this is what I say to everyone is you've got so much deep expertise to offer. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep offering it to people in so many different shapes and sizes. And I think, having your experiences of actually seeing patients building a business, right? Shifting to, a certain type of care, getting into dry eyes, for instance, and understanding aesthetics and all of that. And then now advising, there's so much depth here. And I think people lack that experience and they're looking for it. They don't look for it. So I want to talk about like what you see today. Talk to us about how you see doctors today and the, what that looks like. What's your view of medicine, of optometry today? So talk to us about that for a second.
Well, that is a really interesting question, because I think regardless of what kind of physician you are in the world, I think that is changing.
Yes.
I believe that we were entrepreneurial in probably my generation on either side of that,
Mm-hmm.
where becoming a practitioner of medicine, optometry, dentistry often came with the idea of ownership.
Yes.
We had the proverbial entrepreneurial seizure and we're running our own businesses.
Yes.
I don't think that the physicians of tomorrow have a lot of that. I think that those folks self-select out before going into medicine. They were raised largely in corporate medicine,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be a regional healthcare program or other network, getting their care
Mm-hmm.
in malls
Yes.
and
Yes.
even at corporate offices. A
Yes.
lot of companies have healthcare right on site.
Yes.
So I think that, but what I don't think has changed is the focus on the patient.
Yes.
And I'm going to gamble on that. And that's why I still do what I do. When I come at consulting, Bob,
Mm-hmm.
I still say I'm patient first.
Yes.
Everything that I want to do as an advisor
Mm-hmm.
is about helping us take better care of the patient.
Yes.
See better, feel better, look better, whatever we're doing, it's got to be motivated by that. And secondly, I actually, despite all the accolades in my past, the
Mm-hmm.
thing that makes me really, really happy is the
Yes.
success of someone I'm working with, collaborating with, or
Yes.
mentoring.
Yes.
So
Wonderful.
those two
Wonderful.
things
Yes.
have always fueled what I do and
Yes.
continue to drive what I do now.
I love it. And patients, there's such a need for it.
Ah,
And especially, nowadays, there's not that many doctors going into medicine, right? There are fields, I mean, outside of optometry, I think there's slots available for so many doctors. And you're like, what? Who's going to take care of my kidneys when I get older, right? It's
yeah.
like, who's going to take care of my eyes? So let's shift a little bit and talk about the practice owner, talk a little bit about marketing. Let's get into
Mm.
kind of your journey and about turning from a doctor and becoming a marketer. How was that journey? Explain that a little bit.
Well, I think like most journeys, mine was an accident. Sort of like I became an
Yeah.
accidental dry eye specialist, I became an accidental marketing expert. When social media was just emerging, I guess Facebook was the first
Yes.
venue. My practice managers threatened me that if I didn't get on Facebook, she was quitting.
Right.
So I was at home for a week helping my husband recover from a surgery. So I created my first Facebook account. And little did I know that I like telling stories, but I also saw it as a creative outlet, and I didn't really
Mhm.
have much of that at the time. So,
Mhm.
and it became I bring myself
Yes.
who, to my patients. They know they have my mobile. Nobody ever
Yes.
abuses that stuff, but
Right.
integrating my personal professional life was
Mhm.
natural to me. So I think that social media allowed us to do that. And it was new, so that the ability to be in front of your patient and engage.
Mhm.
And I figured out in short order that on average in optometry,
Mhm.
contact lens patient comes in every 15 months.
Mhm.
A patient wearing eyewear usually comes in about every 24 to 48 months. But with
Mhm.
social media, I could stay in front of that patient and
Listen.
we could deepen the relationship. And I had
Yes.
an opportunity to communicate the breadth and depth of our practice services
Yes.
with that social media. And it just, for us, we became on fire.
Wow. Wow. What was
And
yeah, so you saw the results right away. They would talk to
oh,
you. They would say, oh,
absolutely.
they saw you on their phone and then they visited you and they said, oh, I know everything about you. I know you've had this, that, and the other. But let me talk to you a little bit. Just step back for a second is that a lot of doctors and, who are like reluctant, They're like, well, I've got a professional life. That's my practice profile and this, that, and the other. Well, and I've got a personal life, right? I've got my kids, I've got my families, my friends that I want to keep in touch with on social media. So, but you're saying, no, it's just kind of all blends together.
It is called social for a reason. And
Mhm.
I would say this, you do want to keep your personal life
Yes.
fairly professional.
Yeah.
I mean, ethics in
Right.
your personal life are very important. I had experiences with associates, young women
Mhm.
posting things that I had to talk to them about. I said, if you want to do that, you're welcome to do it. But while
Mhm.
you're in this practice, part
Yeah.
of our agreement
Mhm.
is that you will reflect those professional ethics in your social media as well. And
Yes.
again, those things you had to write into agreements that you didn't have to put in 5 years prior to that.
Right, right. So you observed that whatever they were posting was not appropriate or didn't set the standard that you wanted to, the
Right.
perception, the value that you wanted to express to your patient population.
Yeah.
And
So it is careful. It's a little bit of a carefully orchestrated
yes,
strategy.
it is delicate. My wife is an optometrist and eye doctor, and she started getting into social. And so I used to do the same. I got into social early on, like you, and with Facebook, and I did lots. I had like 40,000. It was like a lot of followers because I wrote some books and so I had a lot of following, and I had a little sticky note on my desktop when I would say, be positive, right?
Mhm.
Never complain, always be positive, give instruction, give value. It's like I made these little things, be humorous, tell a story. So I would always say those, my criteria for posting were those three, four things. And I stuck with that.
Right.
And then when I saw, my wife starting posting on social, she didn't like to post on social for work. And then she would post on social. And I said, listen, you've got to be a little bit careful because all patients have to do is take a screenshot and then put it on a Google review or something like, oh, she's out there having fancy dinners, but she's not, she doesn't have time to see me. All the worst thing, right? It's like you
Mhm.
could think of. And she's like, you're just being, overly cautious. I'm like, yes, I have to be because we're living in this crazy world we are today.
Absolutely. And the flip side of it is if I'm out of the office and couldn't see a patient, I liked posting that picture of me behind a podium or at a meeting giving a
Yes.
presentation. It elevated my stature perhaps for that patient. She may not be here, but look what she's out doing
Right.
and integrating that. And then there's the fun side of it. We were into social media a couple years when the American Business Journals had their social madness contest. I don't know if you remember those.
No, no, I don't remember. Tell me.
And I said to my manager, we're going to compete. And she said, how have you gone from I'll never be on social media to you want to see if we're the best in the country? And we actually made it to the finals as
Wow.
the
Wow.
small for our business
Yes.
size.
Yes.
And part of that, I developed an alter ego during this whole craziness. We competed in a Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader event, and the
Yes.
young doctors competed. And I jokingly said, well, I've always wanted to be a mascot.
Yes.
I won't be on stage, but I have an eyeball mascot costume that's homegrown.
Okay.
And I go to ball games. I have shown up all over town as
Wow, that's
Iris
so
the
cool.
eyeball.
Wow. Iris the eyeball. Okay. I love that. I love it.
Yes, I have pom poms. It's
Yes.
been, but it was part of our strategy then to come into
Yeah. Yeah.
that
Yeah.
finalist category. And
Yeah.
sadly, we lost. The winner
Oh,
would get 10,000 for the charity of their choice, but we decided the community was so engaged
yes.
that we raised the $10,000 ourselves and
Wow.
presented it to Girls on the Run, which created a whole nother, the
Yes.
newspaper, the TV
Yes.
stations,
Yes.
everybody said the loser is now a winner kind of thing.
Wow. I love that. I love
So you
that.
see how, and again, the pillars of, taking care of your patients, growing practice, and of course the community
Yes.
is very important.
Yeah.
So it just became my passion. It was the
Yeah.
kind of practice that I always dreamed about having, one that was very invested
Mhm.
in the community.
Yeah, and I see that energy come across right now as you speak to me and tell me that story, because it's not about thinking about how much more money you can earn per se in a patient. It's about
Mhm.
stepping back and saying, look, I've got something I want to do that I want to add value to our community. I want to add value
Yeah.
to my patients. And so let's go all in. And so I
Mhm.
think this is where a lot of doctors get challenged is like, they post a picture or two. They're not all in. And what I understand about marketing today is you've really got to go all in. You've got to, it's sort of like there's no, if you have an account, start posting. If you
Oh,
have an account, be interesting. If you have a social account and you're interested in, and you've got something to offer, start saying something, have an opinion, share a story, give tips and strategies, give some advice, and get out there. Because there's no point to create an account and have it inactive. Because these days, as I understand, what patients do is they might come and see you and you say, all right, I'm going to diagnose you with this condition. And then they say, oh, I'm going to go home and think about it. And then they quote unquote stalk you. Stalking was a bad word when you and I, like back then it was a bad word. You had a stalker, dude, call
yeah.
911, right? So today, stalking is they check you out, right? They look at your profiles. And if they see inactive profiles, they're like, well, is this doctor really, there's no energy there. I think people want to connect with energetic people. And
You
if
know,
your doctor,
I'm really glad you
yeah,
brought that up because you
yeah.
have inspired me. I
Wow.
spend my days working with clients to help them promote their services, whether we're helping them with some marketing strategy or I'm
Yes.
working with another marketing partner like you or done for you. And that I realize I've been around so long, I don't necessarily think I have to market myself, but two things happened in the
Mhm.
last couple months. One was meeting you
Yes.
and realizing that I don't do my own marketing anymore. I've just sort of laid really low
Mm,
on that. And secondly, people who find out what we do go, where have you been? Why have we known about you? And I
right.
keep hearing that. I thought,
Yeah.
unless I'm going to shut this down, which I'm
Right.
not,
Right.
I am doing a disservice by not. So you have inspired me to recreate my own
Mm,
marketing strategy and begin executing that this
yes.
month. So
And
thank you for that.
of course, of course. And then you inspire me because you've got so much fun in you and you've got so much, fun, energy. Obviously you have the expertise. You're wearing the white coat for crying out loud. You've got the expertise. But it pays off. I give you an example. I post a lot videos on LinkedIn, and I found that was my channel, right? That was my jam. I'm like, let me do LinkedIn. So I was outside this building in Princeton. I had a meeting there, so I'm shooting a video and saying, hey. And as I was entering that building, I realized this was 2.5 years ago in March, and I realized, hey, I was an intern in that building 30 years ago.
Oh,
Okay,
wow.
yeah. So I'm going into this building. I said, I was intern in that building. This guy named Matt Campion gave me my first shot at an internship. I went to drop off my resume instead of mailing it in. A lot of other people, he shook my hand, he took my resume, and I gave me my first job. I had to borrow a suit. We had no money, and so I borrowed a suit from my college roommate, and it started my career. And it was a marketing research internship. Anyway, I posted that video on LinkedIn, and people are like, "Oh, that's great." Guess who writes back? My
The
first
guy who
boss.
borrowed you this. Oh,
Yes,
I was going to
yeah,
say the
no,
guy who loaned you the suit.
the boss, and my boss who from 30 years ago, right? I was like 19 or 18, I forget what it was, and he goes, Bob, you were the best hire I ever had. How are you? I miss you. Let's talk. And then so I reached out to him. I said, Matt, I love you. How have you been? We lost touch. And he goes, hey, what are you doing? I said, I'm a motivational speaker. This is a few years ago before starting Hoot. I was a motivational speaker and I spoke on change management. I wrote a book called Embrace the
Mm.
Chaos. And that was my full-time gig, right? He goes, guess what? We're looking for a speaker about change at our company retreat we're having in New Jersey, which is where I live. And how much do you charge? And I said, this much. He goes, we can't afford that much. I said, Matt, I'll do it for free. He goes, no, 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 I'm going to pay you. And I spoke at his company's retreat. So,
I love that full circle
oh my God,
story.
it was amazing. It was really, really thrilling. It was amazing. So, my point of this story is to say that when you've got energy and fun and something to share with the world, had nothing to do about change management or my book or my speaking stuff at that time. It had to do with something I want to share with the world that adds value to their life, makes it interesting, like you dressing up as an eyeball, going to baseball games. It's just, you make it fun and
Mhm.
people connect with energy. And I think that's just, and then it pays off. No, maybe 60% not going to pay off. You don't know, but you don't know which one, right? You don't know what's going to pay off and not. So let's go into tactics, and let's talk about marketing today. how do you see the doctors often ask is like, what do I say? What do
Mhm.
I talk about? So do you have any tips for doctors today and what they should talk about when it comes to marketing, whether it's on social media or anywhere
Mhm.
else?
Well, there's a couple different directions I'd like to go to answer
Yes.
that question. Is I talk about the four C's of a physician's communication, and one of them is just having the commitment. You have to say, am I committed to putting the pieces in place that allow me to effectively communicate in the office and to my patients when they're not in the office
Yes.
and to the external public? You have to be committed. Secondly, you have to be competent and have
Mhm.
confidence in what you're doing. That when I am working with a practice developing a dry eye service line,
Mhm.
if the doctor doesn't understand the physiology of ocular surface disease, the physiology of an IPL,
Mhm.
and confidence that the treatment is going to affect root cause, we're kind of set up for failure. So we have to get that in place.
Yes.
And then thirdly, the clinical systems. Whatever
Mhm.
it is, if you're doing myopia management, ocular surface disease, refractive surgery, it has to be a smooth experience because you can send messages all day long.
Yes.
And if the patient comes into your practice and doesn't have a really good experience,
Yes.
you really have a negative return on investment.
Mm.
And then the communication piece is the last piece. That's the patient relationship management software, the social media posts, the e-blast, the billboards, and all
Yes.
of that. So it may surprise you that I put the marketing, messaging, communication forth, but along the way, it's your brand. And a good example is when we're doing a dry eye anesthetic service line, I insist that all the materials be branded and in color.
Yes.
Have you not gone into an office and seen a copy of a copy of a copy? It's
Oh my
maybe not
God,
even
it's so annoying. There's zero credibility. It's like you can't be excellent in putting,
exactly.
you don't care about me enough
So
to give me a black and white that's like half cut off or whatever.
yes,
It's
it doesn't look current. It doesn't look contemporary.
yes.
Things may have changed. And so the first step when we're doing a marketing plan is we make sure we have the brand and that we're committed to that.
Yes.
And the materials are, especially when you're doing direct patient care where they're coming off the hip
Mhm.
with significant
Yes.
dollars like myopia management or aesthetics.
Yes.
And so your quality of communication from the doctor's lips to
Mm.
a brochure to a billboard or a
Yes.
direct mail piece or the digital marketing should
Mm.
all look first class. And
Mm.
I love what you're doing. We need to do a quick drip because when we think of digital marketing, a lot of times we're thinking Google ads, Facebook
Yes.
ads, and you
Yes.
know how hard it is to compete in that world.
Yes.
And I've felt successful marketing is often separated by the personal nature of it,
Yes.
and that our patients are in our office, they trust us.
Yes.
I would much rather a digital
Mhm.
marketing campaign land in their lap that
Yes.
I endorsed. It
Yes.
even looks like me,
Right.
sounds like me,
It's
than
you.
just
Yes.
some
And it's
random ad.
That's right. That's right. That's right. I love what you said. I love the four C's. I think I would add one. I think that's
Oh,
one thing we're
please
missing.
do.
One is consistency. And I think you said,
Oh,
which is like, you've got to be consistent. I had a doctor yesterday, huge practice. And, we're talking about, and I said, what's the problem you're facing? He said, just inconsistent.
mm,
One doctor says one thing, one staff does another thing. And there's no consistency he kept saying the word, I don't
mm.
like my inconsistency. And I think you say here, commitment, competence, clinical systems, and communication. So the consistency in all of those must be there.
Oh,
And that's the
absolutely.
process. And that's the process. It goes back to the process. It's like, what are you doing? Are you setting up systems in place? I think one of the challenges doctors have, and I would love your advice on how do we advise doctors this, is that often doctors wear the doctor operator hat
Hmm.
and they forget to wear and put on the owner hat.
Mm.
And so therefore they're working in the business, not on the business.
Oh, you're right. I mean, what is that? Right out of Stephen Covey's,
Yes,
you've got to
exactly.
work on the business. I have a client who bought a new practice, started open cold. He
Mhm.
relocated to the other side of the country,
Mhm.
and he's sort of forgot about how much time he invested when he started his first practice. So he's
Mhm.
left zero time
Yes.
to work on the business and sitting there going, why aren't things growing? I'm sitting here waiting for the patients to walk in. I go, because you're not working on the business. You only
Right.
want to work in it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think what motivated me, I've been doing operational consulting for years, helping docs build their practices. I loved seeing a $700,000 practice go to a $2 million practice and put all those systems in place. And then, as you know, there was the advanced technologies available for ocular surface disease, and didn't want those instruments to be purchased and sit there collecting dust. I
Yes.
wanted them to be put to use. And the doctors who are doing well, they would tell you they're consistent with their communication. In fact, we've built a module into our consulting
Mm-hmm.
called the standard of care.
Mm.
So we get all the doctors on a call
Mm-hmm.
and we agree what our standard of care, individual
Yes.
variability
Yes. Of course.
for ocular surface disease in that practice. And then there's this agreement that this is our consensus.
Yes.
We also build in staff training. I don't necessarily trust the doctors to do their own,
Yes.
but I want every single person, from the optician to the contact lens to the welcome center to the billing person, to understand what it is about this service line, what they should all go through it as a patient.
Yes. Yes. No, I love that. In fact, what this is
Mhm.
about is not about a protocol. It's about standard of care. So often doctors think, well, what's the protocol? Well, that's disease management, right?
Mhm.
But what you're talking about is taking disease management and adding a component to it, right? To streamline it, which is what is the communications? What's the handout look like? Who takes what, the patient from one room to the other. And it's that raising the standard of care, raising the standard of excellence through the lens of the patient experience. I
Yes.
think that's, I think a lot of us call it patient experience, but they feel like, what is that? It's the standard of care you're talking about, which blends, all the different pieces, the protocol. So protocols are not enough, as I understand, right? It's like
Their systems is really what they're
That's right.
systems.
That's right. They're systems.
And I was just advising a doctor who had a new employee, and they were saying, she just doesn't seem to get our culture. I said, well, what'd you do on the first day?
Yes.
Did you put her through the paces of being a patient?
Right. I love that.
That's going to be the baptism that
Yes.
helps them be indoctrinated when
Yes.
they are experiencing what you want your patients. They can also be great mystery shoppers.
Right.
You can debrief them at the end about what they liked, what they didn't like, what was confusing,
Yes.
and use that as an opportunity for continuous improvement.
I love that. In fact, I had a call the other day as well about with the doctor, and he said, I really want to grow my dry eye clinic, and so that's why he joined Hood, and we're getting into it. And I said, okay, let me ask you something. Okay, so you do my biography? Yes, I do. But my staff is kind of reluctant to do my biography, in the first visit. And I said, well, it's very important. He knows he has to do it. I said, let me ask you a question. Would you do staff meetings? Yeah, we get around to it every couple of weeks. I'm like, okay. And what do you discuss? And so I said, he goes, well, we discussed late, who comes in. I'm like, those are like real minutia issues. Why don't you, and a suggestion for you here, if you want to really grow your clinic, and he said, I have 9 staff. And he said, and a couple of them are okay to do the myography and pre-testing. The others are not. I said, well, why don't you do this? Why don't you take one staff meeting and everybody does a myography on themselves? Okay. Do the scan on each other and have a prize of $100 bill for whoever can do it the fastest and the most highest quality manner. Okay. With the right language. And he said, that's a great idea. Why did I think of that? I said, well, because you're working in the business. If you really want people, your staff to be aligned with your goals, you've got to think standard of care. You've got to think patient experience. So marketing is as much about understanding how patients view us as much as how we are putting ourselves out there in the world. People want to spend money on social media marketing and Google ads. You know what?
And then they blow it in their offices.
Exactly. And they blow it in their offices. What's the point of having beautiful funnel and getting all these leads from in your funnel, but then you have leaks in your funnel, with a staff member who doesn't do the pre-testing properly, who's not trained. You say, when the patient asks, hey, what's this test about? Like, I don't know. I just got to do this thing. Like, what?
You walked into my trap. That you have one of my pet peeves. You walked right into it. Part of our process is every single employee has to complete a speed or subjective dry eye tool.
Mm,
They have to have meibomian gland imaging. They
yes,
have to have a full ocular surface disease workup,
yes,
and then they are treated. Do you know how many of us have employees
yeah,
that are untreated or undertreated for ocular surface disease?
totally.
100%.
You're right. You're 100%
And
right.
so if we identify and treat those,
Yes, you're
we
absolutely,
have created ambassadors.
that's right.
They now can communicate more clearly because they have firsthand experience. And in the classic shoemaker's children have no shoes, why would I treat your dry eye and not take care of my
That's,
staff?
that's right.
So that to me is a formal exercise that anybody with new technology or a new service line needs to do.
Yeah,
If you're bringing aesthetics in, you get samples for everybody.
yeah.
You get everybody involved in the training. You get your staff using the skincare
Hmm.
because if Joe patient walks up to the front desk or Joanne patient walks up, they're going to probably ask the front desk, the checkout staff
Mm.
questions that they wouldn't dream of asking the doctor.
Right.
So
They
it's
need that.
really important that everybody is on board.
Yeah. In fact, as the patient is walking out from the comprehensive exam and the doctor has just prescribed an IPL for dry eyes, for example, patients are often reluctant and they look for like the inside information, right? They go down
Mhm.
the hallway
Yeah.
and they ask Jane, Jane, what is this thing? Is it good? And Jane's response is going to either convert them or not.
Yeah.
And if Jane doesn't know what to say, she's like, yeah, some people get it, do get it, I know it's expensive. Oh, it's like, what? They're not going to get it.
What if Jane says, "Oh, it made 3 treatments made
Right.
all the difference in my dry eye," or "I brought my mom in and it's really helped her."
Yes.
Those stories go a lot further. And
Yeah.
I learned this when we were starting to promote digital or computer glasses in the office.
Hmm.
One the rep challenged me, and so what I did is we provided a frame to every employee. I did a computer-based refraction for
Okay.
for all my employees. The rep provided the lenses, we provided the frame. Everybody got a pair of task-specific glasses for work.
Amazing.
I would say 90% of the employees wore those every day. So when you went up to Debbie at the front desk and said, "Dr. Hoscheit just prescribed computer glasses, what do you think?" Oh, I would
Yes,
never come to work without mine.
exactly. Simple thing like that. I did a call the other day and I asked, the staff was like two doctors and six staff and with one of our Hoot members. And I said, who has dry eyes? Who's heard of it? They raised their hand. I said, who has it? One person raised their hand. I said, how do you know? She goes, oh, symptoms. I'm like, what does it you feel like? I said, what have you done about it? She goes, nothing. I said, where can I find a clinic that actually does dry eyes? I said, you've got a doctor right there. She's not going to charge you. Have you done it, a biography? She says, no. I said, what, why wouldn't you do it? It's right there. And this is where I think it's so important to focus the marketing efforts today. We have buried treasure. And let's go back to the start of to our audiences. You've got buried treasure in all of your offices. It's the EHR has all the list of patients that you
Mhm.
have, a certain disease. You've got staff. If you can focus on optimizing the process, the standard of care, the protocols, the way you interact with them, there's treasure there. And
Mhm.
it's really about putting that hat on and getting advisors like Anne here to help you actually do that.
Well, if you look at a statistic like a patient with ocular surface disease will doctor hop 3 to 4 times before getting their
Yes,
ocular surface disease addressed. So
yes.
if you have, 2 to 4 or more years of patients, I consider 4 years or less active patients,
Mhm.
and you can send a digital marketing campaign to the patients who have dry eye, blepharitis,
Right.
whatever diagnosis codes, you've got something new to offer them.
Yes.
You've got patient retention. They're likely to call without a lot of other extra effort,
That's right. That's right.
and you're making people happy. Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing, making their
That's right.
lives better?
That's right. We launched a new campaign, an automated campaign called Saw You a While Ago campaign. And what that
Okay.
does is basically it takes your list of, let's say, 500 people. So I had the doctor do this. She called, she gave us some feedback on it recently. She was thrilled about it. And basically, but you take your list of, let's say she took a list of 500 names from last year who had dry eyes, who diagnosed with dry
Mm-hmm.
eyes. She downloaded on a CSV file, she uploaded into Hoot, and she basically activated a campaign called Saw You a While Ago. And what basically says is, hey, I saw you a while ago. We talked about dry eye disease. I'm going to share a video with you about what it is. And then a second video about, what are the potential problems if you continue without treatment,
Mm-hmm.
and then some treatment options, right? If you want. And so guess what? She had, of all those people, she said to me, she said, I had so many people call. It wasn't like, 100 people, it was like 500 names. I mean, basically what happens is there's a certain number, half are going to do nothing.
Yeah.
The other, 20, 30% are going to opt out or delete or whatever. But then you're left with the good, strong 20%. It's the 80-20 principle.
Mm-hmm.
And she said, we had this flood of patients come in who we hadn't seen. And they said, thank you for sending me that. I had this, I was feeling this way, and I didn't realize I should be calling you.
Mm-hmm.
And then they came in, and then she had all these signups for the IPL. So she was
Mm-hmm.
thrilled. And it just, people are suffering
Yeah.
through these problems. Unless you reach out to them, engage them with some value, not
Mm-hmm.
spamming them with marketing promotion, quote unquote, but really educating them, patient education, then you're going to lose that opportunity. And all it took was just, looking at that buried treasure and digging it up again.
You hit on another statistic, kind of that patients will have been to their doctor 5 or more times. And what of those experiences consisted of? Most of the time, the doctor reaches in a drawer or up in a cabinet, grabs the artificial tear du jour, hands it to the patient.
Yeah,
There's no follow-up, no formal diagnosis, no education.
right,
So that patient is out there in the world thinking that's all that there is.
right.
So when you send a modern technology
Yes,
message like you do, wow,
yes,
if I go in, I'm not just going to get an artificial tear.
right,
They
right.
can do something for me.
That's right. That's right. Or
You
prescribe
crack
blinking
the code.
exercises.
Yeah.
The doctor says, hey, I'm going to send you a video on blinking exercise. Check it out. It's really important. Like, what?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. It's incredible. So, and
Yeah.
let's wrap up. Let's talk about, let's give one piece of advice as we close up here. It's been terrific
Mm.
speaking with you, learning so much from you. And I'm so respectful of your time, very, very thank you for that. So tell me one piece of advice you have for doctors today who are looking to upgrade their marketing. What would you say to them and advise them and saying, this
Mhm.
one thing, I really think you should do this now. What is that one thing?
Well, I appreciate the question and, of course, the opportunity to be here today. If I had to narrow it down to one thing, I would say planning. Go
Mm,
back to the old, failing to plan is planning to fail.
yes.
And that without creating a plan and a strategy and
Mhm.
executing that cadence,
Mm,
you are doomed to failure. So if
yes.
I had to leave with one thing, which is really hard for me to do,
Yes.
I would say make a plan, work the plan.
I love it. I love it. And in fact, I want doctors today to call Dr. Ann Hoscheit to help them develop that plan. I really do. I don't want to pitch and promote you, but I should, because you provide tremendous value.
Well,
And
thank
I
you, Bob.
respect what you do. And so it's iBridge Consulting. Is that what the website? Where can
Mhm.
people reach you?
ibridgeconsulting.com.
Great.
And that's just the easiest, quickest way to find me.
Yes.
And the other thing is, you mentioned fun earlier. I just got a testimonial from a client, and I was so surprised. He talked about how fun it was, that he really enjoyed our calls. They uplifted him, and he felt kind of nurtured from the
Yes.
owner point of view. He
Yes.
was getting some support that he hadn't had before. So we'd love to help you build your practice, and we'll have fun doing it. How about that?
Amazing. I love it. I love it. Thank you so much. And thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. For those of you who've tuned in, this is Bob Miglani. Thank you for tuning in, and like and subscribe our Marketing for Doctors podcast. Have a wonderful day. Thank you so much, Ann. Have a great rest of the day.
And Bob, thank you for the
Thank you.
opportunity, and best of luck as you could continue to grow Hoot, because you're helping us too.
Appreciate it. Thank you.